Welcome to the Meta Nerd channel. I am Commander Jaime and I'm a guest. So yeah, welcome amigos.
That was really short and simple. But yeah, well, greetings you two. Now I can't stop laughing. Never mind. Yes, as promised, and hopefully not the last collab video that we have for V Premium clan collection, this is going to be the third clan selection review video. And of course, we have Commander Jaime here, which is being a good sport by doing the intro. Thank you very much, Dad. Also for this clan collection, we have the surprising returns of Ripples. And if you are a boomer player that you did play during the G era, you know what this means. Although in premium side, it's not really doing the best, I would say. But then again, how would it fare within the V premium format?
Totally different format.
Yeah. How do you feel about the reviews for the Ripple? Solely exclusive to the V Premium format.
I think it's a good different archetype or subclan that people can play test and even use to like maybe for tournaments too. Pavroth and Maelstorm may be locked behind a paywall. Right now, Pursuit of Salt is a promo in the English. And people are going to wait for the reprints. But I mean, by the time this comes out, we'll have the reprints. Maelstrom is still needs a reprint as well. So original Maelstroms are at least $20 over here too. So some people would rather spend the money on probably a different Aqua Force deck. So it gives another option for people to try out and actually do pretty well with the deck. I think this deck has potential.
Yeah, the policy of not reprinting VRs are gonna hurt the player base. Okay, so we only have 3 cards, fortunately. Well, not really fortunately for the clan as an overall, but fortunate for the video length. So the first card, of course, we have is going to be the Great One, Silent Ripple Sotirio. If we do happen to have a starter reset, I would actually really prefer the Ripple starter, if there is a Ripple starter, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep, Alex.
Yeah. Make that happen, Bushi. Auto, when this unit is placed on Vanguard Circle, look at 7 cards from the top of your deck. Choose up to 1 Thundering Ripple Genovious, which is the Grade 3 Ripple. Did I just miss the Ripple part of his name? Never mind.
No, you said it.
Yeah. No, I only said Thundering Genovious.
Oh, did you? I read it as Thundering Ripple. I guess we'll find out. It's all good.
Or the Grade 2 from among them, reveal it and put it into your hand and shuffle your deck. Second seal, auto Vanguard Circle once per turn. When this unit stand by your card's ability, this unit gets 5k power until the end of turn. So this card is basically one piece of the puzzle from our Ripple engine. Of course, this is a right chain, which we see previously from Spectral Duke Dragon as well as the Blau series. This does helps you in your consistency into getting the Grade 2 as well as the Grade 3 for potential right, as well as basically reduce your chances of getting G assist for your game plan. And of course, as mentioned before, this is going to be your Grade 2 and Grade 3 searcher. Although not going to be consistent, I do think the top 7 is quite generous enough for you to possibly hit the Grade 2 Ripple as well as the Grade 3 Ripple. And lastly, of course, if you put this on an XL2 circle, this is going to be a 13k attacker as well as a 23k attacker on restand if you are able to use Genovious skill to restand the full board.
Yeah. Assuming that it's on an XL2 circle, right? And so if you guys have played like the original ride chain, Sotirio would get the top 7 only if you ride onto the starter originally. This is just generic, so this is a godsend too in V series, so you can use any starter. As long as you write this, you're guaranteed to check the top 7. So that'll help deck in so you can get drive checks with like triggers potentially, even on your damage text too. And leading up to basically the consistency of writing up is so important, because if we look back in those days, GSs did not exist. So if you were stuck on a grade, you couldn't even attempt to GSs. That didn't come until later on. So it really hurt you, especially back then, where it's like the first person to get to Grade 3 pretty much has a good chance of winning that matchup. And so leading up to your consistency, you can get Pavroth and Genovious. That way you can just do your thing and then you can focus on getting your remaining pieces.
All the more reasons to reprint the starter or introduce new one. But there's nothing really much to say regarding the Ripple engine, because it's really straightforward. Even from me just reading the skill to you, I guess it's really straightforward in a sense.
Yep.
This is possibly going to be the most straightforward deck for Aqua Force. You will see why. But straightforward does not means weak. For the grade 2, Rising Ripple Pavroth. Auto Vanguard Circle or Rearguard Circle. When this unit attack, costs Soul Blast 1, look at 7 cards from the top of your deck, choose up to 1 Thundering Ripple Genovious from among them. Yeah, I did miss the Ripple, even now.
It's okay. People will hear it.
Reveal it and put it into your hand and shuffle your deck. If this unit is on Rearguard Circle, at the end of that battle, put this unit into your soul. Second skill, Auto Rearguard Circle once per turn. When this unit stand by your card's ability, this unit gets 5k power until the end of turn. So similar to the Grade 1 Ripple, we will have the top 7 search, although this does include 1 Soul Blast. For you to fish up another Grade 3 from the deck is actually not too bad, judging that you can just keep rewriting Genovious to get more exile circles, which means more attack for your combo turn. If you write this on the Vanguard, you will be losing that 1 soul if you do not get any Genovious from the top 7, which might be detrimental just a little bit because you do have some other stuff that basically uses soul. But then again, I don't think it's too expensive to spend that 1 soul blast in the early game just to get consistency. The problem here comes on the rear guard, because on the rear guard, should you pay that 1 soul blast and you did not get Genovious, you will be putting Pavroth into the soul, which means that you basically minus 1 hand to get nothing back and lose 1 rear guard. So it's quite a big minus, but then this is still really optional. You will want Pavroth on the rear guard for the second skill instead of the first skill, so do keep that in mind, because there's like 1 chance for you to get Genovious from the grade 1 right, so it's not really as important for you to basically use Pavroth skill on the rear guard. And once again, similar to the grade 1 Ripple, we have the restanding plus 5k, so which means that this is going to be a 14k attacker and a 24k attacker on restand on an XL2.
Yeah, and so one of the things that it reminds me of Pavroth, it helps with the consistency of the deck still too. So if you do miss Sotirio skill on getting anything, this gives you like a second chance too. So just like Meta Nerd was saying, like you may not want to use it if you already got it. It may be more of a miss. And with the soul, depending on the cards that you play, you may have to play it in moderation. So that way you're not kind of like, you know, out of luck when it comes to your following turns, especially if you use restanders that use soul, such as Tidal Assault or Terrific Coil. So it's just be one of those things you need to be cognizant. And I do appreciate the power up too, because you're playing the Ripple cards to help with the Ripple engine itself, but once you get to the grade 3, you really want to use rearguards for like their being a beater or maybe being a restander, and this kind of helps with that too. So they're not dead after you write to grade 3 too, so they have some utility there. Yeah, one of the things too, if you were to compare the 3, I think Pavroth is kind of like the less important piece. And when it comes to the grade 2s and Aqua Force, you really capitalize on them too. So it's not as hurtful having like a bunch of Sotorios in the grade 1 lineup. Whereas in Pavroth, you want to make room for Coral Assault, maybe a Pursuit Assault or Tidal. Just so many grade 2s that we have access to. So it just depends if you end up playing the 4 copies of Pavroth or even try to reduce it. But it's really one of those things that you got to play test for yourself. So
yeah, that's basically the grade 2 Ripple. Now on to the big man himself, Thundering Ripple. I remember to say Ripple, Genovious. Active Vanguard Circle once per turn. Cost, Soul Blast 1, look at 5 cards from the top of your deck, choose up to 1 card from among them, call it to Rearguard Circle, and shuffle your deck. Second skill, Auto Vanguard Circle. When this unit attacks, if you have no front row stand units, cost Counterblast 1, choose one of your rearguards and stand it. If your damage zone has 4 or more cards, stand all of your rearguards. If you have Rising Ripple Pavroth in your soul, all of the units stand with this effect gets 5k power until the end of turn. Yeah, it's a mouthful, but hey, good card. The first skill of letting you Superior Call anything from the top 5 of your deck is very, very nice, especially against retire heavy matchup. And nice thing about this card design is that it does not really restrict you into, you can basically just call out Ripple. You can call out anything, which is very, very nice in my opinion, because when we see like this sub clan specific, for example, for Spike Brothers, we have Dudleys, right? they
Yep.
are usually racist. Like they will require you to have like a Dudley Vanguard, or you need to call that unit out from a Dudley skill, yada yada yada. So they tend to be racist. But this card is not racist. It's very refreshing. So this card will probably be the last card to attack, because you will want to maximize the full potential of the second skill, because your rear guards do restand. So you're just gonna hit your rear guards no matter how small, because you need those units needs to be stand in order to get the 5k. Don't be discouraged if your opponent gets a damage trigger. They need to get one more damage trigger for your stuff to not hit. So I don't think they will do that. The restanding skill of this card is really nice, and with the bonus of 5k, it actually helps with your restanding rear guards to hit over those damage trigger, which is very, very nice.
Yeah, and probably one of the biggest payouts is restanding all of your rear guards once you get to 4 damage or more. So not only you're beefing up your unit that you're restanding, but at this point you're doing it for your entire field, and more than likely this will be your turn 4. So by the time you get to your turn 4, more than likely too, you'll rewrite, so you'll have a second Excel circle. So then you have those Excel circles, you have your regular columns, you can potentially like end game there as well, especially if you have some big beaters to go with it too. Do keep in mind, it is behind what we usually call limit break, and that's when you have to have the 4 damage or more. I think Meta Nerd, you want to allude more to that a little bit too?
Yeah, so for back in the days, the OG era, the very, very OG, just to let you guys know how much of a boomer I am, and as well as Commander Jaime, the limit break is basically a skill keyword that basically just say, hey, you need to be at 4 damage and above for you to activate this and that skill. This is basically the same thing. Although this one is basically just prevents you from unlocking the full part of the skill, which is actually a really great design idea to introduce even more OP skill.
Yeah, it really scales in that way too. One thing that I'll say too that I appreciate is the timing. Old school Genovious, to get his skill actually would activate after his attack. So even if you were at 4 damage and you drove check a heal, you would go back to 3, and then now you're not a limit break anymore. So this timing is immediately when it attacks before your drive check, so you're able to use the skill right away, and then if you do heal, it doesn't hurt you.
Now those are all the positive side, but the negative side that I find after looking through some of the skills that basically locks behind the 4 damage count is that there is potential detrimental matchups that you will face. For example, the best example here is going to be the regular Amon, or basically Asha, or basically anything that basically could attack with 3 criticals and above. Why is this important? Is because your opponent these types of matchup could lock you into only having 3 damage, and then they can just like attack you with 3 criticals each and every way, because you are forced to guard that attack. And since you are Aqua Force, you are kinda vulnerable to your rear guards being attacked by your opponent. So that's where the detrimental effect comes in. And keep in mind, Genovious here does cause 1 counterblast. So eventually you're gonna run out of counterblast soon, because 3 counterblasts is not much.
Very true. Especially if you got other cards that use it too.
Yeah, unless you want to take the chance in betting your opponent not getting a critical trigger, or any trigger at all, and you getting a 6 damage here. That's basically how you're gonna get out of that situation. But yeah, who wants that?
Right, cross your fingers and hope.
I mean, I don't want to discourage you from playing Genovious, but then again, judging from the meta, I am meta nerd, of course. It's not looking good, but yeah, just believe in the deck. That's all I'm saying.
I would say just be cognizant early on. I mean, there are ways to, if you're going to be a low damage too, so if they're going to hit you with their rear guards, just read your opponent. I think sometimes you just never know. People make mistakes and they can give you that 4th damage, and all of a sudden you can go full power. So it's just one of those things that you just kind of had to see and play out and gauge from your opponent's skill level too.
Okay, here is the sample deck list that Commander Jaime is kind enough to actually provide us. And from here, we see that there's less amount of dragons, which is very refreshing. Because if we go back and see the Maelstrom as well as Tetra Drive, we see all dragons. But yeah, this is all sailors. Aqua Force.
It's a nice change.
Oh yeah. Just give us a run through on the deck design as well as the winning image of this deck.
Yeah, absolutely. So first, where credit is due, this is actually from Axis Vanguard, specifically from Cypher and Zilius. So thank you guys for even working with this list too. And then honestly, I took their inspiration. And as you can see, for the grade 3s, we're playing Genovious and Riptide. And for those that don't know, Riptide is essentially can only attack the 4th battle or more. But due to that, you're able to use its other skill where it can gain plus 20k until the end of the battle. So it becomes a 32k beater by its own. And so with that in mind, what you like to do is kind of similar to what we've done with Naval Gazer as one of the original B-Series Aqua Force cards, is restand Riptide again. So that way you can get 2 Riptide attacks if you're just using one. If you have a second one, especially once you scale with Excel circles, that's even better. And so we do have cards in the grade 2s, which helps me transition there with the grade 2s, as we can see Coral Assault, Pavroth, Algos, and Terrific Coil. And I think I'll start with the ones on the right, the Restanders, Algos, and Terrific Coil. So basically they both restand at the first battle. And Algos is behind a Counterblast, and Terrific Coil is behind a Soul Blast. So depending on the resources that you may have available, you can interchangeably use whichever one fits you better in that moment. What's really cool too is Algos has a Vanguard skill where you could potentially be aggressive in the grade 2 game as well. So if you didn't write Pavroth, you still have another great right target in Algos as well. And Terrific Coil, on the other hand, when it restands due to an ability, just in general, it'll get an additional plus 5k. So that'll be on, let's say, a regular circle, it'll be a 14k. On an Excel 2 circle, it'll be a 19k, which demands 10k shield on its own. But then if you have a card like Genovious, restand it and give it more power, it'll hit 24k on an Excel circle too as well. So you can just see the synergy, not only having restanders, but to like benefit after the restanding effect from Genovious too. Now, why Algos and Terrific Coil are both at 4 is because the attack pattern that you would like ideally is have these guys attack the first and second wave, and then you can have any dummy rearguard attack for the 3rd battle, but then finally you have Riptide attack for the 4th battle. That's when Riptide can finally attack, and then you can attack with Genovious to be able to restand Riptide once more, and in that sense you'll get 6 attacks too. So it's really lucrative in that example. So that's why we play so many restanders, and we've talked about Pavroth too. It helps with that consistency. Just in this build, like with Terrific Coil, just keep moderation of your Soul Blast. So just use your best judgment if you really need to use the Soul Blast for getting a Genovious, or maybe it's not that important and you conserve it too for the long game too. Coral Assault though is a card that helps with the soul, so at the end of the turn, if you did 4 battles or more, Coral Assault can go into soul and draw you a card so you can get advantage back. But it's also a beater that you can use, and it'll get plus 15k if it sees 4 or more other units rested, and so that'll make it 24 with the restand. With Genovious will make it 29. If this was on an XL2 circle, that'll make it 33, which actually is a really nice number too. So with going into the grade 1s, we have a couple of units that are familiar. We have Wheel Assault, of course we have Sotirio, and then we have Nicola. So Wheel Assault is really there to also be another good right target, so that way if you do right, you can counterblast, draw a card, and call something. You could even call Riptide in the early game, because we do play Terrific Coil, and also if you have another Wheel Assault, you can get more attacks, so that way your Riptide can potentially attack while you're still at grade 2. And so that can be very aggressive too. And if you did any tech in it with Sotirio already, not Sotirio, with what's his name, Pavroth, because he does it on attack, it can make that dry check a little scary where you can stack a crit, potentially on your Riptide as well. And Sotirio, you want to play at 4 because you just want to max copies, and then Nicholas is there to help with the consistency of potentially getting a +1 on finding the algos. It'll check the top 7, and it also get plus 3k for the end of turn, so it becomes 11k booster or an attacker. This can help also on the grade 2 turn to have multiple attacks, because more than likely your opponent's Vanguard can't get higher than 10k. Especially if you're going first too, so it's just very advantageous at that point. But it really just helps with the consistency, and also just potentially self +1, where you really have all those pieces once you get to your grade 3 turn, where you can really maximize on that. And lastly, with the triggers, it's pretty straightforward. 8 crit, 4 draw. I think it's just more of a consistent trigger lineup just in Aqua Force, because we do need some draw power, and we like to have some crits for pressure. I've seen lists that have done front triggers, but I feel like that's really dependent on what you're trying to do, because if you do a front trigger and you only have like maybe 1 regard that restands from Genovious, or you don't have as many regards just standing left, it may not be as beneficial. So it's just one of those things that you have to see the pros and the cons. Personally, I like the crits, so that's something that I feel like that could be vouched for too. In a nutshell, that's really the deck. You want to get multiple attacks, you want to abuse Riptide as much as possible. Once you get to your turn 4 rewrite with Genovious, you have more Excel circles. Eventually you're going to break through your opponent's defenses and hit that 6 damage.
If you want to go in detail on the attack pattern, or basically more choices that you could run in a Genovious deck, you can always check out Commander Jaime's channel, which he will do a more in-depth deck profile than what I have here, because, well, you know, it's a simple deck list. It's for you to get started.
Absolutely.
Okay. And that is all for this video. And yes, of course, we are aware that there are no longer any announcement for the next V clan selection. Hopefully, this is not the end for this collaboration. They're still overdressed. I mean, Fleckberg is there. Yeah?
In spirit.
In any case, that is all for this video. And do let us know down in the comment section on what do you think of the Genovious. For me, I am really happy to see one of the OG limit breakers coming back to V Premium. And surprisingly, it's going to be very beginner friendly to anyone that wants to go into Aqua Force.
So as a last thought too, I know sometimes, like, I guess us veteran players too may have some PTSD or whatever it's called, traumatic experience, because in GR Ripples had such an impact too that even it went to Worlds, and it got to the point where it actually got Bushiroad's attention to actually limit a premium Ripple card that Flash Ripple Odysseus. But in the V Premium series, I feel like it's a new fresh start for the entire subclan archetype. So I think it's one of those formats that you can actually enjoy Ripples too, and then even if you do face Ripples, it's not like the end of the world. It's not like something that's kind of broken or anything like that. I think it's a fresh start for this this ride chain essentially, as it gets retrained for V series. So I'm just excited that Bushiroad actually gave it a second chance. I think most people were surprised to see them. Most people were hoping transcore that, transcore this. And lo and behold, we got Ripples, we have a grade 3 with an Excel circle. Premium is a whole different story, and I'm sure later on we'll see what would happen to Odysseus if it really does make an impact in the middle game too, again as well.
I guess it will, because of XL2.
I know, right? So he's Meta Nerd.
He's Commander Jaime.
And we'll see you on the battlefield.